Welcome to Cambodia Business Week with your host Anthony Galliano here on Radio 1 FM 103.7.
We're starting early today because there is so much going on. It's an incredible show. We have 3 guest spots. So if we cut your music off a little early this morning, we apologize, but we're getting down to business first. The show today we're starting out with Katie Scheding, Longhurst, and Chris McCarthy from MangoTango Asia. Good morning, Chris and Katie.
Good morning, Anthony.
Good morning. And I just want to mention we have also a very special guest today, Andrew Jones from the Guardian of the Sanctuary, and also the chairman of PATA, and then Clint, who's a really good friend of ours, has been on several times. O'Connell and Blaise, Kilian. We're going to talk about the EuroCham Tax Forum coming up. Are you excited about the EuroCham Tax Forum 2016, Chris?
I'm actually interested in the tax forum. I'm deeply concerned with tax issues because we have a small business and wanting to make sure that all our taxes are paid properly.
You should. Audits are tough when they're not.
Yes.
And Clint's going to tell us a little bit about that later on. But it's on Wednesday, and I think we have almost 300 people registered already, but we are still not satisfied. We want more. So we'll talk a bit about it a little bit later on. But let's get down to you guys.
Good to know there's so much enthusiasm about tax.
And EuroCham does provide some excellent forums. I have to, in the interest of disclosure, say that I'm on the board with them now. But I can say that I'm also very excited about the event. I think it's going to be a fantastic opportunity for people to talk tax.
We may not have to have our spot, Clint. We'll see. I think we advertising agency just promoted us probably better than we can do it ourselves. Anyway, good morning, Katie and Chris. We're very happy to have you. You guys are new arrivals, not so new, but just pretty recent arrivals, MangoTango Asia into Cambodia. Is that correct?
Well, we started, it depends on your time frame. We started about 2 years ago. Was it 2?
It was in 2014.
Yeah. And it took us a little while to get registered and dot all the T's and cross the I's. And get our general tax department license. That took, and actually the whole process took about a year, but then...
But you didn't use DFDL or Cambodian Investment Management, that's why.
Chris very bravely did it himself in a bang-up style, with many sweaty trips out to the offices and a correspondingly fantastic picture on our certificate.
Yes, yeah. When I brought photos to the registration department, and the photos looked great, but then after 8 hours of sitting or 6 hours of sitting in a hot room, they finally took a picture again, and that old adage about driver's license pictures didn't look so good. But anyway, so we got all of our documentation in order, and we've been on the ground running for about a year, and we are a full service ad agency. In fact, all of the partners come from big traditional ad agencies in
some really big names, right? I mean, you guys came from some very big agencies overseas into Cambodia, right?
Yeah, from Ogilvy, from J. Walter Thompson, from Saatchi & Saatchi, Omnicom Group,
Young and Rubicam, Wonderman. We could go on. McCann.
Yeah, we could go on.
All right, let me ask you first, just quickly. So, Katie, where are you originally from?
I grew up in Los Angeles, where I went to Venice High School. And then I moved to New York, which is where I was working at Ogilvy when I met Chris and Nancy, both of whom were there as well.
Okay, and Chris, you're from?
I am originally from Massachusetts.
I was going to say Boston. I was going to guess.
The Boston area. Actually, I was born in Lowell General Hospital, so I am from Lowell, Massachusetts. We lived there for 6 months. And you may know it because it's one of the largest Cambodian communities outside of Cambodia.
Right. So what brought you guys to Asia?
That is an interesting question. It's serendipity, I'm going to say.
Good summary.
That's about it.
Go ahead.
Nancy and I were living in Singapore, and she was working at Nielsen Media Research, and I was working at an advertising company. And then my job ended, and I was sort of looking for something to do. Around the same time as Katie sent us an email and said, guess what, I'm moving to Cambodia.
Now, Katie, what prompted you to move to Cambodia?
Originally, I was here following my husband, but when I arrived, I looked around at the business environment and very quickly concluded that starting a business would be a fantastic opportunity, especially since my good friend and, dare I say, longtime colleague. We like to not talk about how long ago it was we met, because it feels like we're really old if we do. But my longtime colleague, Chris, was sort of kicking around and possibly available for a venture. So that's how MangoTango came together.
So we dipped our toe in the water, did a small project, and thought, you know what, let's keep doing this. So that's and that was 2 years ago.
Now, coming from these big agencies in these big markets like New York and Singapore, and coming to Cambodia, I mean, what a big change, right? So how did you sort of adjust to these, the sort of glamour of doing business in New York, doing in Singapore, to coming to Phnom Penh, where I mean, let's be frank, advertising isn't as valued by corporates here. It's really a harder sell to get corporates to spend money.
Well, that's true, and that's changing. And in many ways, that's why it's exciting, because advertising doesn't change. It exists. It works. And sure, maybe it's a little more glamorous in New York or London.
Are you saying Phnom Penh's not glamorous? I deny that.
Right? No. Yes, I agree. So I'm gonna backpedal and say maybe it's a larger market, but Phnom Penh is actually quite glamorous. It's got a lot of vibrant culture and history, and it's a cool place.
Yeah.
So
and for us, we sort of know how this story ends, right? Like we've seen advertising in small markets become advertising in bigger markets because the markets get bigger. So we know how the story's written, we know how it ends. And so it's, while there are fewer large corporate clients here ready to put in their advertising dollars, they're all sort of sniffing around and looking. They know that this is going to be a big market. It's forecasted with 7% growth. And for us, it's the same reason to be here. We want to be here early, and we don't think it's too early.
I think the complaint with advertising agencies in the past has been, again, there's been less value on it, but let's say there's not as much as a willingness to budget money to advertising as opposed to other things. And also, the margins in the business are not the same as they would be in other countries. So if you're giving a service, I mean, you guys coming from the high caliber agencies, then you should get paid for it, obviously, right? So you're looking at a market where maybe they don't understand that value as much as, and then something you have to explain. So are you seeing improvement in margins? Because that has really been the complaint with advertising agencies in the past, that there certainly there's companies willing to pay, but not willing to pay what would be a good rate that you would see in other markets.
Well, let me say this about that. There's a lot of things that affect the margin, and one of them is how effectively you do the work, how much you manage the client and their expectations, and not just how much you can charge. So I feel like our background and training in some of these larger international agencies, which I feel lucky to have been part of. I mean, back in the day, when we were doing it, they actually did training. They take a week and put us in a conference room and teach us, how to do the financials. They don't do that anymore for young people. You're on your own. You got to watch a YouTube video, I guess. But no, I'm not so worried about the margins. Business is coming in. I mean, what's interesting is the point we are at in the marketplace, because like if you look at the Comtrade data on some, we've just completed a large-scale study for EuroCham, BritCham, and UKTI on fast-moving consumer goods, which will be coming out in the fall. And if you look at just the growth rates available from the UN Comtrade data of beverages imports or pharmaceutical products, I mean like health and beauty products, just over the last 2 years, it's doubled each of the last 2 years.
Yeah. And I think we've seen this in other markets. I mean, you've seen in Indonesia, where I lived in Indonesia and Thailand, you've seen this massive growth as the economy improves and as the middle class grows, and that would be expected to be here. So that should be a huge opportunity. As this lower middle class continues to prosper, it should be a huge opportunity for advertising agencies, as well as the companies you serve.
It is, and it is because now is a great time for all these consumer packaged goods or fast-moving consumer goods or beverage or food companies to come in, because the market is ready for them, and they are competing with each other. So, I mean, just in the case of, let's say, coffee shops, it's suddenly a crowded market, and you start to see more advertising.
But yet you can't get a seat in the coffee shop. You still go to Brown's or Coffee Bean in the middle of the day, and it's really hard to get a seat. So even though it is a crowded market, there's room for growth still.
Oh, absolutely there is, yeah.
It's not just growth, it's a time to secure brand loyalty. When people come in now and start to operate in an environment like this, even with a small footprint, they can make a really big impact longer term on their future sales in a country that's going to be expanding rapidly.
So what's interesting to me also is that we're seeing a lot of franchises come in. So we see Pasta Mania, which actually is new to me, but anyway, Carl's Jr.
company, a Malaysian company, I think.
Yeah, Carl's Jr. is coming. Obviously we've seen the Starbucks. So this is also has to be a huge opportunity for the advertising market as well, right?
Yes, everything you mentioned, all the new entrants, all the growth that's happening, they're going to need localization, specialization, and that's important too. Understanding how to communicate to the local Cambodian market, that's an expertise we've also built up, which is how can we take.
I want to talk a bit about your product set, and I'm going off your website, which it seems like every advertising agency has a unique website. So yours is actually quite to the point. I would say it's very clear. You start off with saying your one of your product set is integrated marketing communications. What does that exactly mean?
And integrated marketing communications is the big enchilada. It encompasses everything. So it means that we take a high-level view, like the big ad agencies, and we say, well, what are you trying to achieve? And then in order to achieve that, we have a lot of arrows in our quiver that we can use. So we could use digital marketing, print, out-of-home. Television is very, very effective here, and so is radio, actually, especially in the provinces. So integrated just means we have access to all of the tools that are available, including data analytics and social media marketing, and we'll use whatever it is that's necessary to achieve your goal, which is probably getting more customers.
Yes. So I think also one of the things we've talked about before in the past with some of the advertising agencies that have been on is sort of the game changer. So our clients actually asking you, okay, so we've seen these agencies before. They've kind of done these similar things. I need a game changer. Do you get game changing ideas a lot?
I haven't recently had anybody ask me for a game changer.
So clients are still pretty conservative. They go through the normal channels and the normal process.
Well, I think they're always looking for original and creative ideas, but for us, that's part of what integrated is and where we take our data and our strategy and bring it in. We don't sit down with the client. They come in and they say, I want a brochure. Okay, well, before we kick off on a brochure, let's talk about what's driving your need for a brochure. Is that really where you want to go? So I don't think they necessarily come in thinking, I need a game-changing idea. I think they have preconceived notions of what they want to do, some of which might end up absolutely working and meshing with the overall strategy, and some of which they rethink after sitting down and looking at the data.
What works best in Cambodia, Katie? What works best here?
Again, it depends on what you're trying to achieve. If you're trying to change behavior in the provinces, it's going to be radio and television.
Right.
If you're trying to influence young people, it's going to be Facebook.
Yeah, it's all social.
So digital marketing is huge still.
Well, I would say digital as a category, but social in particular in Cambodia. Because when you talk about digital marketing, our experience across all of our partners has been longer term, more of a holistic digital approach where it's, everything from display advertising to search engine marketing and search engine optimization. But here, you go out to do an interview with someone on the street and you say, do you access the internet? And they say, no, I don't. You say, do you have Facebook? And they go, yes, of course. So, it's not just that Facebook is part of the internet. Facebook is the internet for people here. And so
how long do you
different.
think that's going to last, though? Because we've seen the Facebook sort of decline in other markets, particularly, I guess, in the U.S. and in Europe to some extent, from its popularity from where, its peak. Do you think that it's still going to 2 years or 3 years from now, it's going to be as popular as it is now?
It might not be Facebook per se, although I think Facebook's popularity will retain a strong foothold here for at least a few years. But I think you're going to be looking at curated content, that people aren't going to be actively saying, I need a piece of information and I'm going to go and search the entirety of all information out there. they're going to be looking at a lens of what are my friends and family doing around these things. And that's where Facebook really works for advertising. You know, you look at the brands that your friends look at, you follow the brands your friends follow, and you use the products that your friends use. And so that same sort of curated attitude about brands will survive even if it's not in Facebook.
This has always been interesting to me. I mean, I'm certainly older, and it's hard for me to understand why somebody would actually like a brand, like a motor oil brand, as an example.
STP rocks.
Motor oil rocks, right? I mean, if you think about it, a toothpaste, or a motor oil, or a tire company. I mean, everybody's trying to take advantage of, obviously, digital marketing, and that's the place where the consumer is. So, how is a young person going to like a tire brand or a motor oil brand and follow it?
If
yes.
you create the opportunity for them to do that, they will. More likely than not, people are happy to participate in this sort of ongoing social conversation, and part of that language is liking.
I can understand a fast food brand. I eat hamburgers, and I love this hamburger place, and I'm going to follow. Because this is where my friends go. This is where I go. That's understandable, but. Toothpaste. I mean, how do you get somebody to like a toothpaste page and follow it and remain engaged?
Let me ask you this, Anthony. Do you buy the same toothpaste every month in, month out?
Not me, but I'm sure people do.
Someone who buys your toothpaste
Somebody buys
my
toothpaste.
Same
yeah.
toothpaste.
I got different brands on my basin, but I guess it's whatever's on sale.
Do you like to mix it up?
Yeah. I guess my wife goes whatever on sale. I guess.
Okay. Well, whatever the product is, someone is passionate about it. It doesn't mean that every individual in Phnom Penh is going to be passionate about their toothpaste, but the people who are really passionate about it. And if you can engage them not only in the brand, but having some sort of experience with the brand. If it's, I like this Aquafresh toothpaste because it has this particular flavor, and I really like this flavor. It's not something that you keep to yourself. It's something you do share. And so when you have the opportunity to talk, what's your favorite flavor from Aquafresh, then the Aquafresh social site, something.
So let me challenge you guys a bit here on this, okay? Because this is what this is if companies are listening, this is really what they want to hear. So brand loyalty is there. How do you convert people? How do you convert people from using Aquafresh to Colgate? What's the conversion factor?
It's extremely difficult, actually.
Because that's what your clients want you to do, right?
Well, or they want us to support their existing customers as well. That's part of what advertising does also. Really, if you look at the way the big, like Unilever and Procter & Gamble think about the market, they think about reinforcing the habits that parents have for the kids, right? Because habits are formed very early, and so where they're really focused on is getting young people to adopt a brand. Once it's adopted, very hard to move them off of it.
Right, and that's what people want more market. I mean, companies want more market share. So, I mean, one thing is the brand loyalty is fine, but I mean, I'm sure they're saying, we're at 18% market share, we want 22. Can you get us there?
Well, let me actually tell you an interesting story about Cambodia, which we have found is unique in most markets in the world, perhaps. For how brand loyalty and habits are formed. Typically, in a market, your parents use a product, and then you use it because they used it. But because that didn't exist in Cambodia, because we're in this transitional phase, the parents don't have any brand loyalty or even a knowledge of what products are and what they're used for. It's the young people that are learning it, and it's the young people that are teaching their parents about their products. So, one lesson for brand marketers would be to really heavy up on advertising to young people, because they're the ones that will influence brand preferences for their parents.
Okay. I'm not, without getting into specifics in the actual operators, I mean, I think the telecom market here is really interesting because we have three sort of major players, and they're all really fighting to keep the customers they have and to actually convert customers over as well. Not only to convert customers over, but to get some of those people actually have a good deal of subscribers have 2 or 3 SIM cards anyway. It's to use their SIM card. I mean, what sort of advice would you give a telecom operator to gain market share? Because this is I think to me, the most interesting of all markets in Cambodia, because it is the biggest advertising wallet, right? In Cambodia is from the telecoms, correct?
Yes, most of the media spend. A chunk of it is from the telecoms.
Yeah, I mean, they're all doing a
I'm
pretty
getting an
good
opportunity
job.
to do a pitch here, by the way.
Yeah, well, I mean...
Well, there's several different strategies you can use, and the one that people seem to be using now is a race to give away as much stuff as possible. So it's sort of a race to the bottom on price.
And that's a deep pocket strategy, right?
Yes.
Because you have to have really deep pockets to sustain that.
Yeah, and so you'll starve your competitors, and then once you've captured enough of the market, then you can start raising the prices.
You know what? I don't think that's going to work because the competitor will starve and somebody will come in and buy them with bigger pockets and it will start all over again. So that's maybe not the right strategy.
Yeah, so then the strategy would be to focus on providing value to your customers. Finding
service.
out a good service, finding out what they need, and giving it to them.
Yeah, I mean, for us, you can't just look at the telecoms in 2 minutes and say, you should do this. You really would have to look into what's driving people specifically to use their SIM cards, right? Because we know what drives people to have multiple SIM cards, and we know that people do have multiple ones. But what are the reasons they're choosing that one? And then focusing on that to amplify that effect amongst their other users. So if they can say, what we didn't know until we looked at the data was that on Tuesdays, everyone's doing this because of this program we're running. Therefore, this program is the one we should be boosting more onto our social media, talking more about on radio, etc.
All right, so in the 2 years you're here, what is tell us about the most interesting campaign you've done in Cambodia.
Well, we do,
and I'm sure it was a great success.
So we do.
I should say interesting and successful.
It was successful. So we've done a number of campaigns, and we typically start with strategy and market research, and we'll go out into the field and do qualitative and quantitative and data analysis. But we'll take that through to what are the tools you can use. So one of our clients is Joma, the coffee shop.
Okay, that's Hagar, right?
Yes, Hagar is one of the original
minority
investors.
stakeholder.
Yeah, so they wanted to do boost traffic to some of their locations, and we went out. We actually made flyers, coupons. And we put people in a chicken and cow costume, and
that works here, doesn't it?
It did. No, it
fantastically.
It got a tremendous amount of attention.
I'm going to ask Clint if we should do that with the EuroCham 2000.
Did you see the chicken and cow?
No.
Nordham, just south of Independence Monument. They were there for.
I just know when you're in a mall and anybody in a costume, it's like there's this magnet of families.
People
and
want
kids
their photos. Yeah.
No, but it was effective. I mean, it drove sales. It drove visits. So. We did another project for...
Oh, and you can check out the YouTube video on our YouTube channel for that one, which is quite hilarious. The
There's
chicken versus cow.
There's a very funny YouTube video on our... you can get to from our...
MangoTango Asia
Facebook
YouTube channel.
Or YouTube channel.
Or both.
Okay, so tell us... we're in our closing minutes, so tell us what you want to do in Cambodia. What would make you feel like you're achieving and being successful as an advertising agency in a very crowded field? So,
well, one of the things we're doing is we're engaging with university students here. So we have an intern program. It's actually a paid internship, and we take students and we teach them all the basics of marketing from the research all the way through to the chicken and cow, and print and digital. So that's very important to us.
And I imagine there's tremendous interest in advertising now as a career. I mean,
there is.
Because
Absolutely.
I think people see it as an extension of their personal life as well. Because digital marketing being so important, you spend a lot of time on Facebook and Twitter and so forth. Right?
Well, and it's fundamentally, it is business. They all want to go into business but don't know how. And one thing that large agencies and agencies like us who act like large agencies do and offer is a huge spectrum of information, both in terms of looking at a brand, in terms of its strategy, looking at the data, looking at the tactics. You really drill down into these areas and learn so much that you can use throughout your life and any other business you're using.
I have to say, congratulations on actually doing the data and the research, because you don't hear many agencies say that. I mean, it is important to have a foundation and a basis of what your strategy is going to be based on the data. And we had Laurent on from Brains,
yeah.
And he same approach, and I think that's exactly critical to know your customer base, know the market before you actually have a strategy around it. That's fantastic.
And there's a selfish reason for it as well. Going back to your early comment about people not understanding the effectiveness or the need for marketing and advertising. When we start by measuring and start with data, then we can run the programs and show them that they worked. And that helps underline.
All right. So this is our closing questions. We're on some personal questions here. So we're beginning to ask now, what's your favorite movie and what's your favorite book?
Wait, really? That's a question?
That's a question.
I'm going to go with...
We're doing data here
I'm
ourselves.
going to go with the Outlaw Josie Wales.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm a big Clint Eastwood fan. I love him.
Fantastic film. You know it, right?
Love Clint Eastwood. Yeah. The Good, the Bad, the Ugly, I think, is one of the best films ever made. Eli Wallach, great.
And I'm going to have to admit to this. My favorite film of all time is The Princess Bride, which was an excellent book. Not my favorite book, but I think they did such an excellent job on the movie. It's a little older. It's quite whimsical, but it's hilarious, and people quote it all the time.
And your favorite book?
Katie? That's really tough. We're big
Yeah,
readers.
I have to say, I'd say maybe favorite series might be... Okay, if I had to pick one book, I'd say Robert B. Parker, Early Autumn, Spencer series.
Okay, if I were to pick one book, if I had to, I know it sounds cliche, but the writing is so tight. It's Gatsby.
Okay,
I mean,
big book.
Yeah, no, I think it's a short book, but it's beautifully written, and it sort of summarizes the upside and downside of the American.
I'm going to try to get F. Scott Fitzgerald wrote it?
Scott
Yes.
Fitzgerald.
I actually know something. All right, and the last question, favorite thing about Cambodia, and what would you like to see improved?
Favorite.
To me, this is the same thing, actually. It's the instant nature of meetings. Because on the one hand, someone will call and say, hey, can we meet at 2? And you're like, well, I sort of had plans, but yes, of course we can meet at 2. On the other hand, when you need the dentist, hi, can I come in? Sure, come in now at 2. So I think it's both the flip side is good and bad. I love it.
Favorite thing about Cambodia, the energy here, from everyone, the expats, the tourists, the Cambodian people. There's just a tremendous, vibrant culture and energy.
What would you like to see improved?
More energy.
Okay. Well, look, Chris and Katie, thank you for coming. Fantastic conversation. It's a busy show today. I wish we had more time to talk, but I'll welcome you guys back on. We're going to have an advertising panel, I guess, in about a month or so. You guys could come back with Laurent, and we'll have some competitive discussions.
We'll be happy to mix it up.
Sounds great. Thank you very much,
Thank
Anthony.
You. We'll take a quick break. We'll be right back.
You're listening to Cambodia Business Week with Anthony Galliano and his business friends on Radio 1 FM 103.7. Welcome to Cambodia Business Week with your host Anthony Galliano here on Radio 1 FM 103.7.
Sorry, Pink Floyd fans. We had to cut that one off a little early. We'll play it again next hour, right, Tola? Okay. Look, we have a surprise guest today. It's we're really honored to have Andrew with us. Andrew is the chairman of PATA.
Yep.
And also the guardian of the sanctuary, which we will get into a little bit more. Mr. Andrew Jones, welcome to Cambodia, because you live in Hong Kong, right?
I'm based in Hong Kong, Anthony, but I've been to Cambodia a number of times, actually.
Right. And welcome to Cambodia Business Week.
Yeah, it's good to be back.
Great. Well, let's get right into it because it's a busy hour.
Yep.
So tell us about yourself a little bit. Where are you originally from? Where did you grow up?
Okay, I'm originally from the Midlands of England, so a little country village called Hampton in Arden, and I grew up there, and then I went from there to London, and London to Bermuda, and Bermuda to Canada, and Canada to Hong Kong.
Okay, and you spent most of your life in hospitality, so when did you know that this was something of great interest to you?
Well, actually, my folks used to run small hotels and country inns in UK, so I grew up in the business. So that's what I know, and that's what I love. And it was, as I say, in a village, 2 pubs and a church, and my folks ran one of the pubs. So it was sort of a natural. I just followed the family footsteps.
And your education background is around hospitality as well.
Yeah, I went to what was then called the Birmingham College of Food, and then it's now the University College of Birmingham. But I did a chef training program to start with, so I'm actually a qualified chef now.
Okay,
and I did a few things after that.
Cool. We'll ask for an invite over your house for a good.
Yeah, right.
All right. So your role models growing up?
Yeah, interesting. I actually think it was my parents were probably the greatest. I mean, along the journey of life, you meet a lot of good people, and I've had some really good mentors and people that have helped me and guided me through the industry. And of course, moving from country to country, you also get to know people of different cultures and backgrounds. So it's I can't say one. I don't want to sort of single out one person as such, but I think the basics of your parents, how they brought you up and how they treat people and things was...
It's critical, yeah, absolutely. Tell us a bit about your career, because you had an incredible career. You've been in many countries. You've worked for many huge organizations, some of the best, obviously, in the world. So give us a little career you've had. I think our young audience is always interested in career progression.
Well, as I say, I started off as a chef. So I started working after college. I went to London and worked in the kitchens of the Waldorf Hotel in London, and then I worked my way up through the different areas of the hotel. Then I was working in the bars one day, and a gentleman comes in and said, "Do you know anybody who wants to work in Bermuda?" So I put my hand up and said, "Yeah, I think sounds interesting." So I moved to Bermuda, spent a couple of years there, and then I went to, looking around, I went to Canada, and I joined a company called Westin Hotels and Resorts.
That's very famous.
And they were opening a hotel in Toronto at the time, so I joined them there. And then they moved me to Calgary, and then they moved me to Vancouver. And I guess I went so far west of Canada that I came east and came to Hong Kong, and ended up in Hong Kong in the early 80s. And then they moved me to Korea as general manager, and so I've sort of moved around with them. And then I decided to go back to Hong Kong. I missed Hong Kong. Had my own business for a little while, and then was headhunted by Marco Polo Hotels.
Right.
Helped them open a hotel in Vietnam at the time, and then they created a position for me as vice president. And then I did all that, and then after doing that for a few years, I was looking for something else, a little bit more meaning in my life, and that's why I created Sanctuary Resorts, and we can talk about that.
We'll talk about that in a minute. I always like to ask people in the hospitality business. I think a lot of us have all passed through it. I certainly, when I went to college, was a waiter in a very high-end restaurant, and incredible experiences with not only the customers but also the people you work with. It's just absolutely amazing stories that people have. Tell us about your worst customer experience.
Oh, I don't know. The worst customers are like challenges. I love my business, I have to say. I love every day.
Let's change the wording. Let's not call it the worst. Let's call it the most interesting.
Well, to be honest with you, it's sort of interesting because in our business you meet so many different people. So I've looked after the Queen of England when she had a state dinner in Vancouver, for instance. I've looked after some of the movie stars, Sylvester Stallone, and some of those guys. So they're all unique, and also the first time traveler coming to Asia and experience Asia and needs help and advice and things like that. So that's our business. It's all about working with people and helping them and.
So it makes you a very patient person as well, right?
I think that's a good attribute to have in our business. I think we make it look very easy, but there's a lot of hard work goes, behind the scenes into creating that, illusion or those experiences that people really enjoy.
Okay, I'm going to ask you a little bit about Pata. I mean, Pata is something you'll hear about, but I think very few of us actually know what it is. So anybody in the travel industry, I'm sure, knows about it. I've heard about it many times as a banker, but I don't really know what it is. Tell us what it is.
Well, the Pacific Asia Travel Association is its former name and shortened to PATA. Basically, it acts as a catalyst for responsible development of travel and tourism. We say to, from, and within Asia. Originally, it was set up by some people in North America to drive more tourism to Asia and those areas, but now it's more to, from, and within.
So how do you help your members?
Well, basically, we work as a trade association. So the unique thing about PATA is that it brings the governments and the public sectors together with the private sectors. I think we're about the only organization that does that. So we get the governments and the public area representatives talking to the private sector, which drives the business and creates those business opportunities. And it's that combination that provides the opportunities to understand each other's situations, help governments to develop their tourism plans and things like that, but also the private sector to understand the need for good infrastructure and responsible and sustainable tourism.
And obviously, as we're in Cambodia, we're very interested to hear what's happening what is PATA doing in Cambodia?
Well, we have a PATA chapter, what we call a chapter, which is a subgroup of the PATA members, quite active, and our chapter chairman here is Sinan Thurn of B2B Cambodia, and I just met with the executive committee here a few days ago, and they're always looking at ways to help the industry through a network of PATA members and finding research or finding statistics or data that we can provide through that network to help them do a better job of their business.
Well, we obviously want more visitors in Cambodia. I mean, we see our neighbors in Thailand doing extremely well. As this is, I think it's number one industry in Thailand, isn't it?
Well, in a lot of countries, actually, tourism is probably the biggest industry.
Now we know what's wrong. We know what's wrong. We have Angkor Wat. Which is the heritage site. We have a tremendous flow of tourists that go there. We have an underdeveloped Sihanoukville, which we don't get many tourists, and we should. And Phnom Penh has a little bit of morbid tourism. we say, it's not the most exciting thing to see prisons and so forth. But
each
history.
has
it's history. That's fine. But we need more. To attract people.
But each has its unique, selling points, if you like. One of the things that PATA is also focusing on is how can we help governments and to the private sector to broaden the tourism base so that we have a good dispersal of tourism throughout the countries.
So what does Cambodia have to do to become a Thailand in terms of tourism?
Oh, I think just retain its unique heritage and culture, and I guess some of it is improving infrastructure. So that's a government issue. They need to improve the infrastructure so it makes it much easier for visitors to come. We look at things like visa facilitation. So you do have visa on arrival. It's fairly easy to get in here. I did it myself, so that's really good. But it's just a matter of creating those unique experiences and showing the world what you have to offer. I always love coming back to Cambodia. I've been to Angkor Wat obviously a number of times, but there are other exciting places I've been to see in Sihanoukville. So these are sort of the gems, and people are looking to get away from some of the mainstream areas, to be honest with you, and looking for those unique experiences that not everybody has found yet.
Okay, I want to go a little bit into data, because you PATA Strategic Intelligence Center provides data and insights into Asia Pacific. So we're going to ask you some questions on that.
Oh dear.
What is tell us about the Asia Pacific tourist market. What is where are we getting the density of inbound, and where are Asian tourists going outbound?
The big elephant in the room is China, of course, because their outbound and inbound to the other countries is enormous. And
so inbound.
Well, inbound. Well, it's actually inbound to countries like Cambodia and places like that. I mean, it's enormous. I mean, it's about also managing those tourism numbers. It's everybody, of course, looks for the numbers and for the mass tourism, but actually, some of the higher yields come from more smaller groups or for more higher end type of tourists, and that also is about managing the sustainability of a location, because sometimes mass tourism can overcrowd or can have a not so good impact on communities.
So what are the most popular countries to visit in Asia?
Apart from Cambodia, right?
I mean, statistically.
But, no, I don't have the statistics in front of me. I wasn't prepared for that. But I mean, Angkor Wat is obviously one of the famous and most interesting places. There are other countries. I mean, I just came back from the PATA Travel Mart in Jakarta. So Indonesia has a lot of different unique places. Sri Lanka is coming up now as a go-to-see place.
But Thailand's still number one in Asia, right?
Thailand has done a very good job, I have to say, in Asia, and it does attract the tourists, and they have a lot of good marketing opportunities.
Okay, tell us about your role as guardian of the sanctuary resorts.
Oh, okay. Well, now that you get into the heart of the matter, right? And Actually, I was a corporate vice president, as I said, with Marco Polo Hotels, and it's like, okay, I started off as a chef, I ended up as vice president, but there was something that seemed to be missing, and so I was looking to try and find, what will sort of take me into the future. I was sort of middle-aged. Maybe it was midlife crisis, I don't know, but I was trying to find some balance in my life, and basically I went through a 10-day retreat and came up with a concept. And it's really about using my vocation to give back to the community. So that was 20 years ago. So nobody talked about social ventures and things like that in those days. It was just, for me, a way of doing business a bit differently. So I can do my business, I can do well, but I can also do good in the community. So we use the resort as a catalyst for community development.
And it just gives a general idea. What does the sanctuary resorts mean?
Okay, well, basically, it's about creating a place where people can balance their body, mind, and spirit in an environmentally friendly space. So, and that we do that through spa treatments, physical exercise, and seminars for the mind.
Is it a membership of
Nope.
No,
it's basically it was based on my I guess my previous career. It was based on a management concept to set up models that people could copy. To be honest with you, we actually
so it's a philosophy.
It is actually. It's funny you say that, because what you realize is it's not just a business, it's a philosophy, and then people can copy that. So a lot of places now, I think, have copied that type of model. It's a profitable business, so you have to be profitable to be sustainable, and if you want to do good work, you have to be sustainable for the long term.
So it's sort of a branding as well?
Yeah, well, Sanctuary Resort is a brand. Yeah, it was. We actually set up Chintamani in Siem Reap many years ago.
So that's a sanctuary resort?
It was. It's now gone back to the owners. So we tend to give it back to the community so that they can operate it themselves. And
so just a question on this. Would you recommend that when people, they take vacation, to actually to relax, get spa treatments, get wellness, rather than run around and sightsee all the time?
Well, no, actually, it's about going to a place. People want unique experiences. They want to meet the community. They want to experience the local flavors, the culture and heritage. They don't necessarily anymore want to just sit on the beach and do nothing.
Right.
So in a number of our resorts, we've created opportunities to get into the community, experience and meet the people, or to experience the unique aspect of that area. So it could be marine conservation, for instance, or it could be climbing rocks, or things like that.
So I have to ask you, what's your favorite destination in the world?
Well, it's really interesting, because I get that asked a lot. So what's the best? But I like everywhere I go, and mainly it's about the people, because they're so unique and everything else. But I did go in the last couple of years to two places that really was quite different. One was Cuba,
right,
and the other was Bhutan.
Okay, so I want to see Cuba myself.
I tell you, go now, before the mass tourism.
All right, so we're going to shoot you the fast question. Favorite movie?
Oh, Field of Dreams. Field of Dreams is because it's Kevin Costner, but it was also one that I saw when I was starting Sanctuary, and it was about a fellow who started to build his own baseball pitch and overcame all the odds. But it also was a bit of a lesson for me, is that you can do all that and you can live your dreams, but you've got to do it on a basic business.
All right, favorite book?
Celestine Prophecy. I read that book when I started my journey, when I started Sanctuary Resorts, and that was my life in a mirror at that time, because I felt that I'd started a journey to find enlightenment, or to find my mission, and I did. So I'm very happy about that.
And final question, favorite thing about Cambodia, what would you like to see improved?
I think my favorite thing is the people. Right? I mean, they're wonderful, they're very warm, very hospitable, so they have the style of service and friendliness, and that's great. I think the infrastructure needs a little bit more improvement to facilitate the movement of tourists.
Andrew, we want to really thank you for coming. That was
it's my pleasure.
If you come back, please tell us again.
Yeah,
we'll have much more time. We could talk about places you visited, and and we could talk more about wellness.
I'm sure. I'm the guardian, right?
You're the guardian. Thank you very much. We'll be right back.
All right, thanks.
You can't watch TV driving a car. You can't read a newspaper driving a car. About the only thing you can do in a car is listen to the radio. Research proves that car radio regularly reaches consumers within 2 hours of their largest purchase of the day. There's no better time to reach customers than on their car radio, while they're driving to your store, bar, restaurant, or place of business. Radio sells with immediacy. To advertise with Radio 1, contact our sales department at 023 432418. That's 023 432418. Or email info@radio1cambodia.com. Remember, radio advertising works only on Radio 1 FM 103.7. Welcome to Cambodia Business Week with your host Anthony Galliano here on Radio 1 FM 103.7.
It is about the money. We're going to talk about tax very quickly because we have the EuroCham Tax Forum 2016 coming up, and I think we almost have 300 people registered already, which means we want another 200, right? I want to welcome Blaise Kilian from EuroCham Cambodia, who is the advocacy manager. We'll ask what that actually means in a minute. And Clint O'Connell, head of tax advisory for DFDL. So good morning, guys.
Morning, Tony.
Morning.
Well, after those, you got to get a little bit more chirpy after we got to wake people up on this tax forum and make sure I get people excited about it. So Blaise, what does an advocacy manager mean?
An advocacy manager, well, in my case, I can tell you what I do, at least. I'm in charge of maintaining relationship with mostly the royal government of Cambodia, so that we can put in place this pillar of activities that we have at EuroCham, by which we want to basically facilitate dialogue between the private sector and the public sector, and show that we have a continuous relationship in order to discuss together on how to support the government efforts in continuing to improve the investment climate in Cambodia, and make sure that all businesses in Cambodia can live in a fair competition environment.
Okay, so the advocacy groups have done some fantastic work. So we're going to talk a little bit about the tax committee, because you've been intimately involved in that. As part of the overall white paper, which why don't we explain what the white paper is?
So, as part of this whole dialogue policy, EuroCham has last year spent a lot of time consulting all its members, especially through sectorial committees that we have established, in order to ask their feedback on the current business climate in Cambodia, to ask them not only to identify the issues that may affect businesses, but in a very constructive way to propose solutions that we could put forward to the government in a spirit of discussion, and therefore we have published this white book, in which we have about 8-9 chapters, which represent mostly the sectors in which our members are involved. And for each chapter, we have a series of proposals that are designed to demonstrate what kind of additional policies could further improve business environment in Cambodia.
Okay, so Clint, you were a member of the tax committee. What did the tax committee? Some of the ideas that the tax committee and recommendations they've come up with the white book.
It was a huge raft of ideas, Anthony, from the tax committee. As you know, a lot of grey areas in the tax regulations in Cambodia. We looked at things such as withholding tax on rental. We looked at exported services for VAT, minimum tax. We looked at entertainment expenses, a whole raft of issues, and I believe we got a very good feedback from the GDT, and I think it was a very productive exercise, and looking forward to hear back further from the GDT with respect to some of those issues.
So the GDT, there was a meeting between the tax committee and the GDT, and the issues in the white paper / were discussed, and the GDT came back and responded to them, correct?
Correct, and quite, in a lot of cases, quite productive responses, setting up working groups to look at some of these issues. which, historically in Cambodia, it's pretty difficult to get things done. I can say, based on my experience, this has been a very productive exercise.
Right, and Blaise, I think from my understanding, the GDT also came back and wanted to further these discussions and asked to enter into a memorandum of understanding for further discussions.
Yes, we are currently discussing with the General Department of Taxation to finalize this MOU, but there is this common willingness to continue the dialogue on the long term, and this is exactly what we want. I mean, we understand that the government have their priorities, that the private sector has their demands, but the idea is to keep the dialogue on, to keep the door open to more discussions, and indeed we hope to be able to sign an MOU for regular consultations very soon, and that's a very good opening.
All right, so let's talk about the tax forum. How big a topical, trendy issue is tax now for EuroCham members?
Well, in my opinion, tax is a very big issue for every company in Cambodia. For every company that wishes to be compliant, everybody is supposed to pay tax. It's very normal. It happens in every country. The government currently is working out a huge reform. I'm sure Clint can tell more about it. There is a huge reform which will, of course, have consequences for the entire economy. So therefore, when you talk about tax, that means that every company is concerned by the matter.
And why did EuroCham decide to hold this tax forum now?
We decided to hold this tax forum first based on the very active work of our tax committee, but because, again, we are aware of the reforms that are being implemented. We understand that there is a strong need by the taxpayer, the SMEs, to understand better the system and the reforms in order to be compliant, because it's not always easy to be compliant if you don't understand it. Therefore, we had this idea to bring together all the very best tax professionals in the country with the General Department of Taxation to organize this day-long forum and explain every part of the regulation that could help taxpayers, that could help SMEs, that could help chief financial officers, that will help all the entrepreneurs to better understand the system and therefore to be compliant and be able to live with these tax regulations.
Now, Clint, you had a major contribution in putting the agenda together, hitting really on what's, I guess, the topical and pertinent issues on tax today. Tell us a bit about the agenda. Who's going to be there? Who's going to contribute, and what subjects are going to be covered?
Well, it's a bit of a coup for the EuroCham Tax Summit. Of course, we have His Excellency Gung Vi Ball giving the opening speech, and that will be very interesting and very practical, not just for the recent changes, but also hopefully a bit of insight as to what is coming up on the agenda for the tax department in Cambodia. We have a number of industry experts, too many to name, and I don't want to miss anyone off, so I'll just say we have basically from the leading tax and legal firms in Cambodia.
I guess we could say we have yourselves, DFDL, we have EY, we have Grant Thornton,
Deloitte,
Rachana Tang.
Ratchathan Sok and Heng.
It's just RT.
Yes, RT Sok and Heng, and Boon as well, Boon and Associates.
I mean,
Casey from CAMED as well.
Right. So we have the government, we have the top firms in the market, and we have the top educational firm as well.
And also, which is very unique for this summit, which Blaise mentions, we also have senior representatives from the tax department also participating in the panel discussion. So a very unique opportunity to present questions to the policymakers and also to the people who are actually policing the tax regulations from the government.
Okay, so what's going to be covered, just quickly?
Of course, as you mentioned, recent tax reform, big issues such as the abolishment of the estimated tax regime, the new laws for the small to medium enterprises in Cambodia, and then VAT issues, a big issue on tax disputes and the tax disputes process.
The audit process and tax disputes.
Exactly.
That's got to be really interesting.
Yes. I had the joy of moderating that panel, so I'll try to be fair to all parties. And the DTA, recent DTA between Cambodia and Singapore, which should be quite interesting.
And Casey's going to cover professional qualifications as well.
Correct.
Right.
Correct.
Okay. Who should attend, Blaise? Who should attend this tax forum?
Everybody who has a company and has to pay tax should attend. This is about paying taxes. So again, every company is concerned. At least every company who wishes to be compliant. And we are in an era now where the economy is really being formalized in a wider proportion. This is the objective of the government policy. So every company owner, every tax director, every chief financial officer, every CEO, every entrepreneur who has a company that has to pay taxes and who has some questions also that are maybe not yet perfectly answered should attend this forum.
All right, and you've got some fantastic sponsors that you may want to mention.
Yes, we have plenty of sponsors. We attracted a lot of people. We have CBC, Cambodia Credit Bureau, who is our gold sponsor.
Thanks, Pascal.
Yes, we have a number of silver sponsors as well, and bronze sponsors. I will mention Bread. I will mention Deloitte. I will mention DKSH, which recently joined as well. We have also media sponsors. We have Khmer Times, and we have online media sponsors as well.
So realestate.com.
Realestate.com.kh. So we have a very wide number of sponsors which are very visible. AG4 wins. So
so many,
so many, but they are very visible on every media outlet and on the day of the forum.
Now, I'm not going to ask you guys your favorite movie or your favorite book, unless you were saving up for wanting to tell us.
Well, besides the tax code, Clint.
What's your favorite movie, Clint?
Favorite movie would be Good Will Hunting.
Okay. Favorite book?
Basically anything written by John Grisham.
Okay. Blaise?
My favorite book for a very long time has been Lord of the Rings.
Okay.
Fairly
and your favorite movie would be Lord of the Rings.
Well, it was a good adaptation, which was not easy at all, but I must say that Peter Jackson did a good job on this one.
Okay, I'm going to ask the last question is, why should somebody attend this? I mean, it's first of all, it's at the Intercontinental. It's Wednesday, September 21st. $50 for EuroCham members,
yes.
$60 for non. You can easily just go on the EuroCham Cambodia website to register. We expect about 300 people.
Yes. Yes.
And you get lunch included and a network event.
Networking event at the end.
Right. So, why would somebody want to attend this, Clint?
Look, this is a very, very rare opportunity to have a large group of tax practitioners and the senior officials from the tax department. Huge amount of recent tax reform. You really need to know this if you're in business in Cambodia or if you want to be in business in Cambodia. I really strongly encourage everyone to come along and have a look. It should be a very interesting day.
Okay, thanks, guys. We're going to let Animal Mama come on. It's our time. Thank you very much for... sorry the show was very busy today, but thank you very much. And we look forward to seeing everybody on Wednesday, September 21st, at the EuroCham Tax Forum 2016. See you next week.